Is humanity charting the course for its own self-immolation by global leaders' apparent refusal to grapple with the enormity of the climate crisis and what that means for the world's population? In 2015, the Paris Agreement was adopted to much fanfare and self-congratulation. After much lobbying and leadership with groupings of small island or large ocean developing states at the forefront, one of the hard-fought-for outcomes of that year's UN Climate Change Conference of Parties was a global commitment to limit the planet's average temperature rise to under 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels in a bid to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. The 2015 Paris Agreement was supposed to signal the serious intention of developed countries to provide technical and financial assistance with addressing the losses and damage that were already at the time being experienced by climate-vulnerable nations. The main goals of the Paris Accords were to limit long-term temperature rise to below 2 degrees with a 1.5-degree target, reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible, a framework for climate change mitigation, conservation and enhancement of forests and reservoirs, and investment in green technology to achieve climate goals. Much of the progress towards these stated goals has lagged significantly behind expectations and timelines. Now, consensus among climate scientists and policymakers is that the world will rocket past the 1.5-degree threshold by 2030, with reporting from British news outlet The Guardian suggesting that there is currently a 50% chance of the benchmark being reached in the next 5 years. There is also a 93% chance that 2016's record as the hottest year ever, fueled by a natural El Niño cycle in that year, will be beaten by 2026. With the planet already approximately 1.2 degrees hotter than 150 years ago on average, what does a future past the 1.5-degree threshold look like? It looks like more record-breaking heat events like the United Kingdom's heat wave 3 months ago, which included the hottest day recorded in UK history, with temperatures rising above 40 degrees Celsius. The extreme heat sparked fires across England, which scientists called a wake-up call for climate emergency.
10 rare wildfires burned and billowed across London. Yes, the British capital, as the London Fire Brigade, stretched thin and stressed out, saw its busiest day since World War II. The same day, the country shattered the record for its hottest day in known history.
The UK has today recorded its highest ever temperature, 40.3 degrees Celsius.
That's over 104 degrees Fahrenheit, sparking already parched grasses.
Barreling past the 1.5-degree threshold will also likely include record-breaking rainfall with commensurate devastating flash floods.
Late summer is traditionally flash flood season, but 2022's events are increasingly record setters.
Climate change is making it easier for the heaviest rains to become even heavier. And this summer is a good example of that trend, which has been playing out over decades.
The underwater ecosystems of the world's coral reefs would be disrupted, damaged, and ultimately destroyed if temperatures surpass 1.5 degrees Celsius, as the delicate coral polyps experience mass die-offs in the warming ocean waters.
Already in 2016, severe coral bleaching has also been recorded across the Pacific Ocean, in Fiji, across the Indian Ocean, in the Maldives and the Seychelles, and even in the southern Red Sea. Similar events are predicted across the Caribbean and Micronesia. In a year in which the impacts of heat stress on the global ocean have reached unprecedented extremes, as the distribution of marine species continues to change, as storm surges continue to intensify, as sea ice and glacier melt accelerate, and as sea level rise and human displacement intensifies.
Warmer oceans, as those of us in this part of the world are already all too aware, also provide more energy for more intense, more destructive hurricanes, leading to more fear and anxiety among populations in the hurricane belt during the annual hurricane season, and more devastation when these superstorms hit a landmass. Species on land might also be faced with extinction as global temperatures rise, triggering climate change effects.
We expect a number of species to go extinct every few thousands of years. But currently we have evidence of a large number of species that have already gone extinct in the past few decades or hundreds of years. And this is way higher than we'd expect just by chance. The expectation now is that the current extinction will be much faster. The most important factors is habitat transformation. This is particularly important in the tropics. Climate change, species exploitation, and pollution. As soon as climate change starts interacting with this lack of habitat that we find, then that's when we're going to start seeing thousands of species going extinct.
A warming Earth would also accelerate the melting of ice caps, which in turn would trigger rising sea levels, causing beach erosion and flooding across the globe, with smaller islands prone to being completely submerged underwater. Already, 9 Pacific Island nations, Kiribati, the Maldives, Vanuatu, Tuvalu, the Solomon Islands, Samoa, Nauru, Fiji, and the Marshall Islands, are grappling with the prospect of total or near-total disappearance due to already rising seas. The climate crisis is also leading to increased health issues relating to air quality and pollution. Nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds can interact with each other in the presence of sunlight to create ozone, a gas made up of 3 oxygen atoms that can irritate the respiratory system. While the Earth's ozone layer forms a protective barrier against the sun's radiation, concentrations at ground level can become problematic for overall public health. Warmer days mean an increase in the chemical reactions that create more ground-level ozone, and the accumulation of said ground-level ozone on hot days can trigger a rash of respiratory ailments among populations. Given the overwhelming lack of robust concerted action by the nearly 200 countries which have signed on to the Paris Agreement, some scientists believe that the planet is virtually doomed to experience some of the harsher effects of climate change. Quote, "We're staring down the barrel of something really horrific," marine biologist Ove Goldberg of the University of Queensland in Australia told the US's National Public Radio last year. With the jubilation and self-congratulation of the Paris Accords now long past, much of the focus of COP27, which is ongoing in Egypt, is about how to prevent moving further along the climate catastrophe scale.
We can limit toxic pollutants, smog, and greenhouse gases by decreasing the use of fossil fuels, such as in transportation, manufacturing, and electricity generation. Reducing air pollution not only contributes to a cleaner environment and better human health, but can also slow the rate of global warming.
One of the biggest barriers is the abject lack of commitment from some of the richest, most industrialized countries, which emit the highest amounts of greenhouse gases and other pollutants, to take up their responsibility of enacting laws and regulations to address climate change from within their borders. Of particular concern to developing nations vulnerable to the effects of climate change are the repeated failed attempts to construct a financial mechanism to address the burning issue of who pays for the losses and damage caused by each natural disaster made more devastating by changing climate conditions. Malwyn Joseph of Antigua and Barbuda, chair of the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS, said today, Wednesday, that even now, with COP27 in its final days, quote, "Some developed countries are furiously trying to stall progress and even worse, attempting to undermine small island developing states. So not only are they causing the worst impacts of the climate crisis, they are playing games with us in this multilateral process. There have only been informal consultations to date of this critical agenda item and no official launch of negotiations through a joint contact group." Will that mindset among the richer developed nations change once this year's COP has concluded? By and large, humanity, which this week was judged to be 8 billion people strong, will have to wait and see.